All right, drink cucks, we're back. Hard Mountain Dew in hand. Kelly loves it. Look at that face.
Yeah.
We still need a drink cucks shirt.
Well, set up a merchandise store for yourself
It's
and put it out.
coming, people. It's coming. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the Neo Geo. So Kelly, how much of a Neo Geo guy were you?
So I wasn't much, well, I wasn't any of a Neo Geo guy for a long time. Then I started hanging out with this Belinsky guy who drone on and on about, imprisoning people in his basement, running shifty black market deals for pharmaceuticals, and the Neo Geo. You third thing usually came up. And so I became pretty fascinated with it as you kind of started to share some of your background and understanding of it, and pretty cool environment. So I became Neo Geo curious and have explored the environment a little bit more since then. So what we're going to talk about today was definitely of interest to me.
Yeah, to me as well. So for anybody who's not familiar with the console, you might be familiar with Neo Geo collections that have popped up on most modern platforms now. If not general Neo Geo collections, then collections of some of their bigger franchise titles like King of Fighters, Samurai Showdown, Metal Slug, that kind of stuff. Tons of great games, very fighting game heavy, their catalog. And that's because of the King of Fighters franchise, which has spawned all kinds of spin-offs and things like that, and is now tied to Street Fighter and everything else in the world. So that's mostly where that comes from. But really great platform. What they did that was interesting is instead of trying to their way to get into arcades when the parent company SNK was making their arcade cabinets was that each of their arcade cabinets would have multiple games on there. And not only that, but you wouldn't have to buy when new games came out, you wouldn't have to buy a new cabinet or switch out things in the cabinet itself. There was just a console inside the cabinet with four cartridge slots, and the games are on giant cartridges. So, and I mean giant physically, not just memory wise, but also memory wise. They were much bigger than a lot of the arcade games, the ROM size that were out at the time. Tons of animation and detail on these huge cartridges that were like the size of a copybook. And the arcade owners would, when new games would come out, would just pop out an underperforming cartridge and pop a new game in, put it, slap the new decal up on there, and they were good to go. They didn't have to buy more units or do any of that kind of stuff. So arcade owners love them. They became popular there. Their large, oversized red cabinets were everywhere. They also came out with a really cool memory card feature where you could buy a memory card, put it into the cabinet, and it would save your progress and things like that. You could take that to another arcade or bring it back with you to play games later. And I actually did that. We had there was a video store near my grandparents' house that had a Neo Geo cabinet, and I had a memory card for that. So it was a really cool feature, lots of cool stuff. People started asking for home console ports of the games. Some started to trickle out on Genesis and Super Nintendo, but the games had to be pared back really significantly. I'm not saying they're bad. Some of them are actually pretty impressive conversions for what they are, but they're just a fraction of the memory size that is on these arcade cartridges. So SNK started to make home versions of the Neo Geo, which is just the console basically in a shell. And you would get the actual arcade games just with a menu added to them, basically. So this was originally only a rental unit. You couldn't actually buy them. And then eventually they started selling them, but it was a very niche market. The console was insanely expensive, and the game cartridges cost hundreds of dollars. When it was originally an ongoing thing, I only came across them in like one store, like physical retail store in this whole area of Philadelphia. So I saw them for rental in video stores and things like that, but to actually purchase it, they were not in big box retail stores. Between just the console and one game and a controller would have set you back like 2 grand. So that's not something that was going to be in your Toys R Us in the early 90s. So cut to, now consoles can play these games, of course. So there's all kinds of collections and different ways to play this. There was a system released pre mini system craze called the Neo Geo Gold. I got one of those. I was an early adopter of that. I liked it, but there was a ton of backlash over it. Some of the emulation had problems. It wasn't unplayable the way that people make it sound, but it wasn't perfect. There was eventually a Neo Geo Mini and also a Neo Geo Fight Stick and things that have been released. Now Evercade is doing Neo Geo collections they're coming out with. So there's again all kinds of ways you can play these games, but part of me has always still wanted a real Neo Geo console with a couple of these huge cartridges. And there are games that are still being made for it. Lots of homebrew games and small indie games. Xeno Crisis was ported to Neo Geo, for example. And sure, you can buy the ROM legally from them, but kind of want a huge cartridge of Xeno Crisis that I can play. I already have two physical copies of Xeno Crisis, and I'm eyeing a third because I kind of want the Super Nintendo version. It would be great to have a huge Neo Geo cartridge of it. But of course, original hardware is harder to find. And again, you're running into a lot of the same problems that you would run into. So a lot of newer options are coming up where people are consoleizing the arcade boards. And that's what I came across here that I shared with Kelly. So is this something, I guess this is kind of a skip and listed by it. Where are you on possibly a consoleized arcade board?
Well, we're going to provide a link to it in the description. Neo Ness did a great videos, the video Mike shared with me that got ready. So he got a prototype of what consoleized Neo Geo MVS multi-video system would look like, or at least kind of the idea. Kind of his was red. Apparently, there's going to be color options. I know how important that is to you, Mike. So there's color options. So that's going to probably influence your decision on skip and listed by it. But it's going to be hard for me to come down definitively. So Neo Ness's video is great. You're going to get a really good idea what it looks like, what a controller might look like. And again, it's a prototype, so it's only going to get better in terms of what he's got to see. But he did not share a price. He said he did pay for the version he did. He did not disclose what that amount was. He said that it wasn't on the Project Retro Games website, projectretrogames.com. He said there's no price on that yet either. And he's correct on that because best I could tell, and maybe your skill set's a little better than mine, I went to projectretrogames.com and can find no hint of this anywhere yet. So I think it may, I don't know, it's out there somewhere. I expect for you to do it that you can actually maybe get on a waiting list for it. But absent a price and what I know, my limited Neo Geo history knowledge, which came from you, and there were some takeaways for me. One, the console itself, crazy expensive. Two, any cartridge, even crazier expensive. And so I'm, if it comes in at a price point that is sustainable for me, I'd consider it, and I'd be willing to have that be a little bit heftier price tag than most of the things that we've talked about in the past on the show here, because it would be a pretty cool experience to have that, be able to swap those things out, to kind of have that arcade level quality. The controller that Neo Ness had looked great in terms of usability and layout and all that. So in terms of skip it, listed, buy it, I'm gonna have to have it on listed pending more information. It is definitely something that I just walked away from. Saying, nah, it's not gonna be on the list, but it'll probably stay on the list, but it may go way down on the list depending on what the price is. So we'll have to see. Where are you at?
So as big a fan as I am of Neo Geo, I do have the mini. I did have the gold. I do have the mini. Um, And of course, there's all kinds of collections that are available, including Evercade collections that are about to come out that I'm sure I'm going to pick up. So I have access to a lot of these games. I really want to be able to support the homebrew games. I really want a giant oversized cartridge of Xeno Crisis. And with that Xeno Crisis oversized, you would think we work for Bitmap Bureau, but with that Xeno Crisis oversized cartridge, they even send you the things to swap out in your marquee and all that kind of stuff for Xeno Crisis, which is really cool. So I would love to support that, buy that package, get all that really cool stuff. Price though is really what it's going to come down to. Same with Kelly. I know enough to know the Neo Geo stuff is expensive. I mean, that's the first thing most people who know about Neo Geo know about it is that it is prohibitively expensive. That's why these collections are so popular, is because it's most people's way to play these games because they don't, didn't have the systems originally and can't go back and purchase them now. So if this comes in at an even semi reasonable price, it's a guaranteed buy it for me. But it's all going to come down to the price. If this is $1,000 or something, there's no way I can justify that to myself. But to Kelly's point though, I would probably go a little higher than I would go for most consoles just to have an actual Neo Geo and be able to play some actual Neo Geo cartridges.
Yeah, and the Xeno Crisis packaging does look really good in terms of not only what's in it, but kind of how it's done. So it looks it looks tempting to just kind of have that as you continue to build out your Xeno Crisis full set collection.
Yeah,
Do that.
plus Bitmap Bureau is doing the new Terminator game, the guys who did Xeno Crisis. And not that's initially going to come out on Steam and everything, but they've already said they're going to port that to retro consoles, just
That's
like they did with Xeno Crisis. So again, that'll be a chance. I don't know if it's going to come in. They haven't said which consoles it's going to come out for, but that could be another Neo Geo. I would really love to see them put it on Nintendo 64 like they did with Xeno Crisis. That was awesome to get that. So
yeah, and hey, let us know in the comments if this is something you're interested in and would be buying, and if you have a point at which the price point break and kind of say, I'd spend up to or around this or that. Let us know in the comment. Those comments will land and be much more clear and sharp if you've already subscribed to the Bog Panda YouTube channel. It's a fairly straightforward process. I don't think I need to step you through it, but please consider doing that. Give a video to a like, leave us a comment. All that would be great. You can check out a lot of other things. We have many links in our description, just some merchandise we have, a link to Bog Panda Vision, which contains Game Boy games, an NES game, Doom levels, amazing C64 basic code, an online game, couple online games. There's lots of stuff out there, all free. So you should check that out as well. They're extra free if you've subscribed, just so you know, double free.
take
So
10% off your free order.
that's right. Every every subscriber gets 10% off the free. Anything else you want to add about this potentially upcoming prototype MVS? We don't know quite the price yet thing.
No, it's all going to be about price point for me.
Yep. Same here. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bog Panda.